It might be common for families to have conflicts or financial issues. Yet, there are probably also families who are somehow pulling it together and making an effort to get through everyday life. It's pretty clear which one is happier, don't you think? My name is Michelle. I've been called an oddball since I was a child. I don't know what's different about me. I only think I'm different because people say so. Being called different isn't a problem, but the real issue is being shunned by my own parents. I ended up having a lonely childhood. I have been sensitive to people's emotions and I can somehow read their minds. I don't know why I can do this. It's not like I can always see or feel it, but it's as natural to me as moving my hand or breathing. So I found it strange and couldn't understand why others couldn't do the same. There was a time when I felt a sinister aura or emotion, or whatever you call it, from a colleague my father brought home from work. I warned my mother to be careful with that person, but she didn't listen. Later on, that colleague managed my father into signing a contract as a guarantor for a loan. Although my mother didn't take my advice, when my father stepped away from the table with his colleague, I told him, "Dad, something is telling me that the word joint is dangerous. I don't know what joint means, but please be careful." So, my father hesitated and refused to sign as a joint guarantor. Thanks to that, when my colleague went bankrupt and couldn't repay the debt, my father was able to avoid shouldering all the debt. Another day, when I was shopping with my mother, I felt a wave of discomfort coming from behind us. When I turned around, I felt this wave coming from a man wearing sunglasses and a hat. "Mom, let's take that side street." Saying this, I grabbed my mother's hand and moved to the side street. My mother was confused and asked what was wrong, but just as we moved to the side street, we heard a shout of "Thief!" from the street we were just on. The man with the negative aura had snatched a woman's purse who was walking in front of him and ran off. The woman who had her purse snatched fell over from the momentum and got hurt pretty bad. If we hadn't moved to the side street and continued walking, the man's target would have been my mother. Such things happened frequently, and I was labeled as a strange and mysterious child. And paradoxically, my parents began to avoid me. I was lonely and isolated. What seemed normal to me was not perceived as normal by others. I began to keep my mind to myself, since being the strange, weird, and spooky child is who I am to others. I stopped expressing that, even if I felt something, it was something normal people don't feel. It was because I understood that if I didn't say something, they wouldn't say I was a weird kid, that I was just like a normal kid. I have a sister, Amy, who's 3 years younger than me. Unlike me, Amy's a regular kid. As the years go by, I find myself growing darker, retreating more into my shell. But Amy just gets cuter and more charming. It's clear who anyone would prefer. Our parents clearly started to favor Amy over me. Amy is such a lovely girl, but Michelle seems to be a bit on the darker side. Indeed, Michelle has become less odd lately, but she's still a bit different, isn't she? What they call odd was me refraining from talking about things only I could sense. It was my way of dealing with the world. I was fed up with how this power of mine was torturing me, and I was trying hard to suppress it. I wondered if my attempts to hide myself and appear normal were ironically making me seem abnormal, or if once labeled as the odd kid, the image just couldn't be erased. I grew up without receiving much love from my parents. On the other hand, Amy received all the love, including my share. Amy, who was pampered and raised, sensed my parents being cold and distant towards me. She started to look down on me. "I don't like being around you. It feels like your gloominess rubs off on me. I'm so cute, but your loner image brings me down." She started to insult me whenever she got the chance. Our parents just lightly scolded Amy, but they never seriously tried to correct her. When I was in 8th grade and Amy was in 5th grade, she was scouted by a talent agency on the street. I knew it! It's because I'm cute. They said I could even appear on TV. Amy, pleased with herself, started dreaming big, and our parents didn't seem entirely against it. You should calm down and think carefully. I sensed something shady about this. I spoke up, expressing the intuition that I had long suppressed because I didn't want Amy to get into trouble. Amy, who didn't know about my unique ability, said, "What's your problem? Are you just jealous because you're not cute and nobody approached you? Don't say weird things and stop interfering with me." She seemed furious. Even my parents, who knew about me, either forgot about it or were too excited about Amy standing on the glamorous stage, sided with Amy and criticized me. After that, I resolved to remain silent again. I told myself that there was nothing good in saying unnecessary things. One day, a student teacher came to my junior high school. He was a male college student who graduated from the school and aspired to be a physical education teacher. As he shared his dreams about education and gave a strong greeting, the teacher and students, especially the female students, were charmed. When he responded cheerfully to the girls' excited cheers, I sensed a dark aura from him. I had always vowed to hide myself and not reveal my unique abilities. But seeing my classmates potentially in danger, I decided to break my self-imposed rule. I chose a teacher who seemed understanding and talked to them. "I know this is sudden, but please believe me and help me." The teacher was puzzled by my sudden request, but she agreed to stake out a certain location after school just as I asked. I didn't tell the teacher the details. I had no reason to think they would believe me, but the fact that they agreed to help without any explanation might mean they're not an ordinary person either. And the next day, the school was in an uproar. A male student teacher was arrested for violating a public nuisance prevention ordinance. The location where the teacher staked out was near the girls' restroom, and within 15 minutes of starting the stakeout, the student teacher appeared, entered the girls' restroom, and installed a video camera. The teacher caught him in the act. Thanks to that, female students were saved from being secretly filmed, and their dignity was protected. Meanwhile, my sister, who was scouted by a talent agency, proudly joined the agency, but there were no real lessons or auditions. She only had to pay expensive membership and lesson fees. Then, suddenly, the agency closed down, leaving an empty shell. In short, my sister was scammed. She cried and screamed, directing her anger at me. "It's all because you said weird things! My future is ruined! It's all your fault!" It didn't make any sense, but my sister seemed to truly believe it. Maybe that's the only way she could handle it, but for me, it was a disaster and a nuisance. Our parents didn't say such unreasonable things, but their attitude became more distant towards me and more supportive of my sister. I ended up feeling lonely again, as the odd one out. I was happy that I could help everyone at school, but I was terrified that my actions would corner myself. That's when I received a call from the teacher who had listened to my story, asking me to come to the staff room. Worried that I would be labeled as strange again, I opened the door to the teacher's staff room. "You knew something like that was going to happen, didn't you?" The teacher asked me in a low voice without any preamble. Thinking there was no point in pretending, I gathered my courage and told the teacher about my mysterious power. "I thought so. I know there are very few people like you." For the first time, someone showed understanding for my situation. The teacher said they knew someone with a power like mine, and that's why they could understand. Actually, that person is my aunt, and I've been listening to her stories for a long time. You must be worried about a lot of things because of your power. Maybe getting advice from someone who's been in your shoes will help clear your mind. Saying that, the teacher introduced me to the person. The person looked at me with kind eyes and said, "It's natural to be worried," but you don't need to suffer. I was drawn to their gentle yet deep eyes that seemed to see through everything. The person's name was Haley, and she had the same kind of power as me since she was a child, and she had experienced a lot of struggles and hiding herself throughout her life. The stories from my senior who had gone through the same experiences helped me release my worries and doubts. From this day on, my interactions with Haley began. I called Haley my mentor, but she just gave a wry smile and said, "Please don't." Thanks to Haley, or rather my mentor, I changed. I had been living my life hiding as a quiet, unnoticeable existence. But as my consciousness transformed, I gradually began to live a normal life as an ordinary girl. However, since the incident with the talent agency, I have not been able to reconcile with my sister. If anything, it feels like we're drifting apart. It's become normal for her not to talk to me, and when she does, it's just to complain or insult me for no reason. I often have no idea what triggers her mood switches. My power couldn't predict my sister's emotional changes either. Just because you got into college doesn't mean you're all that. It's not even that great of a level, and you're so happy-go-lucky. My sister, who had been expected to get into her top choice high school, ended up at her second choice safety school. Because of that, she got mad when I got into my first choice college. It's not like I'm full of myself or brag to her. She just disses me because of her own assumptions. Our parents only try to appease my upset sister and keep their distance from me, as if telling me to stay away from her. It seemed that my sister didn't like the fact that I had become brighter since meeting my mentor. To my sister, I had to be a dark and gloomy girl who was inferior to her. But my sister is really smart. It was surprising that she failed her high school entrance exams. Of course, she was filled with frustration, and she poured all of that into studying at her new high school. As a result, she was at the top of her class for all 3 years and got accepted into a prestigious national university in one shot. I got into the most difficult university. Your college doesn't even come close to mine. I lightly responded with, "That's true," to my satisfied sister because I knew there was nothing good to come from getting too involved with her. However, my sister thought that my light reaction was belittling her accomplishments and unleashed a barrage of verbal abuse at me. Both my parents were at their wits' end with my sister, who couldn't be calmed down once she lost her temper, and all they could do was watch nervously. My parents blamed me for causing the trouble and eventually ended up calling me a troublemaker. I wanted to argue back about who the real problem child was, but I always swallowed my words to avoid complicating things further. Setting aside my sister's issues, as I approached college graduation, I had to seriously confront my own career path. Although I was no longer as introverted as I used to be, I still struggled with socializing and had little confidence in building good relationships with others. My ability allowed me to detect people's negative emotions. While I could sense positive emotions as well, it seemed people were more prone to negative ones, which made detecting such negativity painful for me. Throughout my school life, I was tormented by these swirling negative emotions and had come close to losing faith in people. Could someone like me really manage to work at a company? I decided to consult my mentor about this dilemma. I wanted to learn how she had overcome similar issues, as I was sure she had faced them as well. "I have experienced the same worries as you. Maybe you should consider doing the kind of work I do." My mentor used to work as a fortune teller and a counselor, helping people resolve their problems. She could use her abilities to their fullest extent and contribute to the world and people around her. Also, she was able to work freelance, which meant she didn't have to belong to any organization, and there were fewer chances of getting entangled in human relationships or being affected by other people's emotions. "It's the perfect job for people like us." Encouraged by my mentor, I decided to pursue the same line of work. She taught me everything from how to do the job to how to acquire clients. Nowadays, thanks to the internet, it's possible to work from home without any issues. When I told my parents and sister that I would not seek employment after graduation and work from home instead, they responded, "What's that? What kind of job is that? Seems so dumb. You'll be home all the time? At least make sure to do the housework. Can you even make a living doing that? How will you cover living expenses? Well, as long as you contribute to the household, do whatever you want. While I expected such a response from my parents, it made me feel a little lonely that they didn't support me more. I felt sad thinking about their demands for housework and money. My mood darkened, and so my life working from home began. At first, I didn't have any job requests, and I struggled day by day. But with my mentor's help, I gradually got the hang of it and started to make a living. For about a year, I couldn't contribute financially to the household, so I focused on doing the housework. My dad seemed unsatisfied, but my mom was relieved and kept him in check. After about a year, when I finally started contributing financially, my dad mocked me by saying, "Finally, you're able to earn some pocket change, huh?" But I could tell that he was actually quite satisfied with the money. However, even though I was contributing, the amount of housework I had to do didn't decrease, and our lives remained unchanged. Then, after another 2 years, my sister graduated from college and secured a job at a foreign company. Unlike you, I'm an elite. You're just unemployed, living at the bottom of the barrel. It's so depressing to have you as a sister. My sister, who had successfully landed a job, started to belittle me for working from home. What are you even doing working from home? That's just like playing. You're nothing more than a parasite living at home. At times, she'd say, "It's really weird not to work outside. I'm working my butt off, earning everyone's respect, and now I've been promoted to team leader. My pay is going to increase, and I'm probably earning about 10 times more than you. There's no way a homebody like you can earn that much." My sister, who was promoted to team leader after only a year and a half in the company, kept one-upping me and looking down on me. She boasts about her good salary, but hardly contributes any money to the household, and she doesn't help with the chores at all. Laundry, cleaning, preparing meals, everything is dumped onto Mom and me. When I say Mom and me, Mom mostly leaves it to me, so I'm basically carrying everything. Whenever I say to her, "Amy, you should take care of yourself a little. You shouldn't just spend all your money on fun. You should contribute to the household too," she just dismisses me saying, The unemployed can handle the chores. I'm saving my money for my future." Our parents also just let her do as she pleases for some inexplicable reason of, "It's Amy, can't be helped." I was used to my current lifestyle, and it was a comfortable environment for me to work, so I wanted to keep it that way. But I was starting to consider how to take care of myself. And then came the bombshell announcement from my sister. "I'm getting married!" Without any prior warning, both our parents and I were taken aback as she continued, "He's really rich, a real elite with an annual income of over $20 million. Oh, sorry for finding happiness before you, but marriage is just a pipe dream for unemployees like you, isn't it?" And she said she would bring her boyfriend over the next Sunday. With the rapid-fire succession of sudden developments, Sunday came as we were still reeling. The man my sister brought along looked like a successful young man, impeccably dressed with a sharp suit. "Nice to meet you. My name is Danielle. I would like to ask for your permission to marry Amy." His greeting was completely proper, and he showed good manners. "See? Isn't he wonderful? Just as I said. I'm going to be so happy with this man." "So, Danielle, what do you do for a living?" Dad managed to ask a question while being overwhelmed by the boyfriend's aura. "Yes, I'm currently training at a company that my father knows." We were puzzled by the word training, and then Amy said gleefully, "His father is the president of a company. He's training outside now to take over the presidency in the future." My sister seemed over the moon about the prospect of becoming a future president's wife. Afterwards, we had various conversations and Amy's boyfriend left stylishly. There were a few things that made me raise an eyebrow in the conversation that followed, but my parents were thrilled with the high-spec man. However, I felt an inexplicable, dark shadow from that seemingly refreshing and good-natured man, Daniel. It's something only I can feel, so I don't know how to explain it. However, I could no longer remain silent, fearing that marrying a man with insecurities would make my sister unhappy. Amy, you've only been dating him for less than 3 months, so you might want to understand him a little more before deciding to get married. I had a strong gut feeling warning me of something, but I was unable to articulate it properly. All I could do was attempt to caution Amy using general advice.
What are you talking about, sis? He's an elite and a future CEO. You won't find anyone better than him. Oh, I see. You're jealous, aren't you? You're bitter because you're comparing your life to my happy one. Poor jobless sis.
Even our parents got angry at me for getting in the way of a rich man becoming part of our family. You're just unemployed, so at the very least, stop interfering with your sister's happiness. It was clear to me that our parents were hoping to secure a comfortable old age by marrying Amy off to a wealthy man. Frustrated by my inability to effectively communicate my concern about the dark shadow, I sensed looming over Amy. My head was spinning. In the meantime, the two got engaged, and a meeting between both families took place. Daniel's parents, like him, carried an air of freshness about them, but I felt the same ominous cloud hidden behind them. However, I was unable to convey this danger to my overjoyed sister and parents, and before I knew it, the day of the wedding had arrived.
The CEO of our company is attending today's reception. Can you comprehend how much I'm appreciated and anticipated in my company? I guess it's a kind of honor that a shut-in like you wouldn't understand.
Before leaving the house, my sister gleefully shared this news with me without me even asking. She always included some derogatory words directed at me. At the wedding ceremony, held at a hotel, the couple who pledged eternal love to each other entered the reception hall. Watching my sister, who was beaming with joy, I worried about how long this happiness would last. As my sister mentioned, the CEO made a keynote speech. Naturally, it was full of praise for my sister, which delighted her. Once the speeches were over, food and drinks were served to each table. There were all sorts of delicious-looking dishes, but I started to feel a sense of discomfort gradually. That's because no dishes were being served in front of me. At first, I thought it was just late, but other tables were already being served drinks, appetizers, and so on, one after another. Clearly, something was off. Nothing was being delivered to me. People at the same table began to notice this oddity and started whispering among themselves. At that moment, my sister came over to me and whispered into my ear with laughter in her voice.
We didn't prepare free meals for the unemployed. After all, it's such a waste to serve such food to a jobless person. You should just eat potato chips at home. Just leave your gift money and go home.
This outrageous remark was spoken loudly in my ear, and my ears rang. Daniel, sitting at the groom's table, was grinning and nodding greatly. Even our parents, who at first seemed surprised, said, "Well, it's true. Michelle is jobless after all." I was first taken aback. Then a wave of anger surged up within me. I never thought you'd stoop this low, sis. Mom and Dad, this is unacceptable. How could you accept such rudeness? My parents just scowled at me, never bothering to reprimand my sister. Fine, I get it. I'm leaving, but don't come crying to me later.
What's with the parting shot? The howling of a sore loser, I guess.
Amidst the chaos of this unbelievable turn of events, a man suddenly stood up. Sorry to interrupt, I'm the groom's brother, Kyle. My brother and parents are trash, but it seems the bride is even worse. I can't take it anymore. The man who introduced himself as Kyle continued to speak. Dad, your company went bankrupt 6 months ago, didn't it? Pretending to still be a CEO is just a scheme to mooch off the bride and her family. Daniel will never become a CEO, yet he still plans to leech off his wife while pretending otherwise. After all, he's unemployed now. The man's words stirred up a commotion among the guests, but the person who was most heated up was my sister.
What do you mean? You lied to me? What do you mean unemployed?
A storm of questions with a red-faced expression. Her face gradually turned from red to blue, her eyes welling up with tears. Our parents, their assumptions proven wrong, began to yell and curse. The anguished cries of my family echoed throughout the venue. The groom and his parents remained silent, looking sulky. In reality, before the ceremony, I had received a confession and apology from Kyle and asked him to speak his mind without reservation if something happened during the reception. Then, as my sister was berating Daniel with a wrathful face, another man couldn't take it anymore and stood up. It was the president of my sister's company.
Enough already. This is embarrassing. You have no right to criticize the groom. What do you think about your terrible attitude towards your own sister?
The president's angry voice made my sister's face contort in fear.
For one, I didn't attend your wedding for your sake. I wouldn't have come if you weren't the sister of Michelle.
Suddenly, my name was mentioned by the president, and my sister's eyes widened in surprise.
Huh? Who are you talking about?
Michelle is a goddess to many of us business owners, rescuing countless companies from the brink of collapse. In fact, with the guidance of my mentor, I had been working as an advisor for corporate revitalization and growth, starting with fortune-telling and life consultation. Although I lacked business knowledge, I used my abilities to show companies the path they should take. All my advice was spot on, and the companies that sought my help experienced a rapid resurgence in business, achieving a V-shaped recovery. As a result, I had earned titles like teacher and goddess. My sister's company had also consulted with me 6 months ago, and thanks to my advice, it had been reborn as a stronger enterprise. The president, grateful for my assistance, attended the wedding today as well.
I had no idea! You're not just a basement-dwelling unemployed nobody, are you?
Thanks to my thriving career, I now earn several times what you do. Despite contributing significantly to the household income, our parents never seemed to care about me. I wonder what they thought that money was. Uh-oh, we thought Amy provided that money. The parents seem to have misunderstood the situation. There's no way Amy would have been contributing money to the house. The wedding reception turned into a chaotic scene and was called off. Naturally, all the guests were fully refunded their wedding gifts.
I was planning on using those wedding gifts to pay for the venue. What am I supposed to do now? Besides, I've also been relying on Daniel's income and have already signed a contract for an apartment under my name. I can't afford it on my own, especially now that he's unemployed.
Daniel, in response to his sobbing bride, retorted, "You're the one who signed the contract. I don't know anything about that."
I want to divorce you, fraudster!
The wedding was a complete disaster. It was a result of gratuitous malice towards others. She may argue that there were reasons for her malicious behavior, but there was no way that was going to fly. Afterward, Amy divorced Daniel and claimed alimony. As Daniel was jobless and his parents didn't have much, she couldn't receive much alimony. She barely managed to pay for the wedding venue, let alone the apartment she had contracted. The place that was supposed to be their love nest was never occupied and was canceled. However, the debt didn't simply vanish, and Amy found herself heavily burdened by the loans. Moreover, her outrageous behavior at the wedding was quickly known among her colleagues, which led to a rapid decline in her reputation. The CEO had no choice but to demote her. With no place left in the company and having lost her pride as an elite, Amy wanted to quit and run away, but she had to bear the embarrassment for the sake of loan repayment, continuing with a trivial job in a hardly noticeable basement storage room. Daniel and his parents, who had failed in their plan to leech off Amy, were now scraping by with occasional day labor. Naturally, Sean's elder brother Ethan had cut off all ties with his parents and brother. The parents quickly gave up on Amy when she hit rock bottom and tried to cozy up to me instead. To them I said, "I've had enough of being manipulated by you. I'm cutting ties. Goodbye forever." I declared this and moved out to start a new life in a newly rented apartment. They took in the fallen Amy, who was struggling to make ends meet. Amy's salary was drastically reduced, and she couldn't possibly contribute to the household expenses. Of course, I stopped the money that I was contributing to the house as well. Unable to lower their standard of living, our parents quickly became exhausted and are panting every day. My work is going so well, and I'm able to guide many companies and individuals in the right direction. In fact, I started dating Kyle after the whole wedding incident, and he recently proposed. If things go well, marriage could be on the cards. I'm looking forward to building a happy life with Kyle, a man of pure heart with no dark shadows.
What? Infertility treatment? We don't need that. All you need to do is take care of the house and family. What? That's unfair. I was taken aback by Lawrence's unexpected remark, feeling like I was just being treated as a housekeeper. Despite my anxiety, I carried on with my days. While cleaning Lawrence's room, I found something shocking. A birth video of a woman I didn't know. Who is this woman? As I was wondering what to do, a man named August appeared. I enlisted August's help to expose Lawrence's affair in front of our entire family. In the Keaton family, it's a tradition to gather at our parents' home on Christmas night. I made a suggestion to my in-laws. Lucas, could we host this year's Christmas gathering at our apartment? After explaining everything, my in-laws agreed. Thus began my revenge on Lawrence. I'm Maria, a 40-year-old housewife, married for 3 years. I married Lawrence at 37 and have been longing for a child. But even after 3 years, we still couldn't conceive. I met Lawrence, who is 3 years older than me, at a party, and we got married. The Keaton family, Lawrence's family, is a well-known, prestigious family in our area. It was somewhat surprising that Lawrence, the son of such a wealthy family, remained single until he was 40. However, we clicked, and I thought we were a good match, so I didn't hesitate to marry him. After our wedding, we started living in an apartment near his parents' house. Eventually, we planned to live with his parents, which seemed natural since I married their only son. Both of my in-laws cherish me as their daughter-in-law. Lucas could be a bit difficult, but my mother-in-law Diana was very kind. So I thought we would manage just fine. Following Lawrence's wishes, I quit my job to help out with family chores. I've always enjoyed helping others. I thought my dream of a happy married life was starting. But about a year into our marriage, I began to notice a change in Lawrence. He had been so kind when we first married. Recently, however, he seemed increasingly distant. When he came home from work, he wouldn't even say, "I'm home." He just handed me his shirt and said, "Wash this and iron it." We barely talked except when he had chores for me. I wondered, did I do something to upset him? Reflecting on my actions since our marriage, I couldn't find anything that would have angered Lawrence. Still concerned, I decided to talk to Diana about it. "Diana, recently I feel like Lawrence has become colder. He hardly talks to me unless it's about chores. Am I doing something wrong?" Diana smiled kindly and answered, "Lawrence is just like Lucas. After we got married, Lucas was the same way. Maybe Lawrence, like his father, finds it awkward to talk with his wife. So I shouldn't worry too much? Perhaps that's just the nature of marriage. Over time you'll come to understand each other better." Her words reassured me a little. Lucas and Diana have a very good relationship now, so I thought maybe Lawrence and I will get along better as time goes on. But I was still worried. Maybe if we had a child, Lawrence would change. I've always loved children and longed for my own. To that end, I checked my basal body temperature every morning and tracked the best days for conception. I also tried to lead a healthy lifestyle to improve my chances of getting pregnant. But 3 years into our marriage, there was still no sign of pregnancy. Maybe the problem was me. I decided to bring it up with Lawrence. "Lawrence, we've been married for 3 years and still no children. I was thinking we should get checked." "What do you mean, get checked?" Lawrence asked with an indifferent expression. But I gathered my courage and continued. "I mean, either you or I might have an issue. Maybe we should consider infertility treatment." I hesitantly brought up the topic of infertility treatment, but Lawrence just looked annoyed. Then he said something unbelievable. "What? Infertility treatment? We don't need that. Just do your chores and take care of the family." "What? That's harsh." I was shocked by Lawrence's unexpected response. I felt like he was treating me as nothing more than a housekeeper. "Don't you want children? Even Lucas is expecting someone to continue the family name. I challenged him, but Lawrence seemed lost for words for a moment. That'll work itself out. What do you mean by work itself out? I questioned his vague response, but he didn't reply. The heir will work itself out. I couldn't stop thinking about what Lawrence had said, and the meaning behind those words would be revealed in an unexpected way later on. I spent each day burdened with anxiety. Day in and day out, cooking, laundry, cleaning. It was a never-ending cycle. I told myself it was natural since I was a daughter-in-law, but it felt increasingly empty. I was cleaning Lawrence's study again today. The room is lined with countless books. I have to carefully dust the spaces between them. Next to the bookshelf, there's a large CD rack. Due to the awkward gaps, I need to take everything out to clean it properly. I carefully removed each item, trying not to mix up their order. It seems the top shelf is filled with DVDs. While taking out about 20 at once, I lost my grip and dropped them all. Oh no! I need to put these back exactly as they were. All of the DVDs had fallen out of their cases, and I couldn't tell which belonged where. Lawrence is meticulous, so he labels both the DVDs and their cases. I started matching the labels on the DVDs to their cases. Among them, one caught my attention. I couldn't tell what it was about, but it read, November 30th, 2022. Clyde's birth. Clyde? Who's that? Seeing this reminded me of Lawrence's words. The heir will work itself out. Suspecting a connection, I decided to play the DVD. I took it to the living room where the TV and player were. Pressing play, the screen showed a dark room with a bed that looked like a hospital examination table. A woman in her early 20s lay on the bed, smiling at the camera. She wore oversized pajamas, and her belly was visibly large. She was pregnant. The woman calmly smiled, then suddenly grimaced in pain. It hurts, Lawrence, rub my back. Rosamond, just a little bit longer, you can do it. This must be labor. But more than that, I was startled by the voice of the man rubbing her back. Is that Lawrence's voice? The pregnant woman called him that too. She was in obvious pain. I've never experienced it, but it seemed like the baby was about to be born. So this was a labor room. Who is this woman? This woman in labor, continuously calling for Lawrence. Why was Lawrence there with her? After a while, several women in nurses' uniforms, presumably midwives, entered. They were guiding the pregnant woman in breathing techniques. The pregnant woman was then moved to the delivery table, and Lawrence followed her. It seemed the filming had paused for a while, and then, in the next moment, incredibly, the scene vividly displayed Lawrence attending the birth. Throughout her pain, the woman continued to call out Lawrence's name. Rosamond, it's okay. I can see the head. Just a little bit more. You're doing great. Lawrence's excited voice echoed. Tears started rolling down my cheeks. Lawrence was having an affair. The date on the label was exactly 1 year ago. This meant the affair had been going on for nearly 2 years. Was this DVD definitive proof? But this alone wasn't proof that the child was Lawrence's. In situations like this, I'd need a lawyer or a detective to investigate. However, Lawrence only gives me enough money for living expenses, so I don't have much to spare. As I was lost in thought, the doorbell rang. Looking out the window, I saw a man in his late 20s. Hello, may I ask who you are? My name is August. Is Lawrence home? He looked troubled. No, my husband isn't home yet. I see. You're his wife, aren't you? Sorry to bother you, but may I have a moment of your time? I was curious about this troubled-looking man. Opening the front door, he politely handed me his business card. He introduced himself as August. The name sounded familiar. Actually, I came to talk to your husband about a colleague of his, a woman named Rosamond. The name Rosamond caught my attention. It was the same as the pregnant woman from earlier. Is this Rosamond by any chance the woman who gave birth about a year ago? Upon hearing my question, August showed a look of surprise. Why do you ask? Did your husband mention something about acknowledging a child? Acknowledging? What do you mean? As I pressed for more answers in surprise, August covered his mouth with both hands, shocked. I'm sorry, he said, clearly regretting his slip of the tongue. I calmed him down. It's okay. I have an idea about what's going on, so please, won't you tell me everything? I invited him inside to talk more comfortably. I served him coffee, but August didn't touch it, his expression grave. Then he murmured, "Rosamond is my ex-girlfriend." "What? So you broke up because she had an affair with my husband?" "No, it's not that, but—" I was confused by August's response. Normally, if a girlfriend cheats with her boss, the boyfriend would be angry and break up, or confront the man she cheated with. But August didn't seem to fit that pattern. "But isn't the child in Rosamond's womb Lawrence's? How could that not be the reason for your breakup?" "It's not like that! The child is actually mine!" August's sudden loud declaration startled me. More importantly, what did he mean the child wasn't Lawrence's? You mentioned Lawrence acknowledged the child, right? Does he know it's not his? "I don't know about that, but Rosamond insists it's Lawrence's child." "Do you have proof it's your child?" "Yes, I do," August asserted confidently. He had seen the baby, Clyde, and claimed the boy looked exactly like his own baby photos. That's why he tried to reconcile with Rosamond. However, Rosamond refused, not wanting a family with financially unstable August. No, it wasn't just that. Rosamond insisted that Clyde was not August's child, but definitely Lawrence's. That meant she had been involved with both men for a while. She got Lawrence to acknowledge the child, and he was even covering both child support and Rosamond's living expenses. Whenever I asked Lawrence about his salary, he would snap back, "Why do you need to know?" I see. He didn't want his salary known for that reason. I was filled with a sense of frustration and helplessness. August couldn't give up on the child and hired a detective. It turned out Clyde was indeed his son. "Mrs. Keaton, even if the child isn't your husband's, he was still having an affair, and we can't overlook him giving money to Rosamond." "Of course not." We decided to collaborate and resolve this matter. Now it's December. In the Keaton family, it's traditional to gather at the family home on Christmas night. I made a proposal to my in-laws. "Lucas, can we host this year's Christmas gathering at our house?"
"Why? You know our family is quite large,"
Lucas asked. "It's a lot of work preparing the meal and all." To get their cooperation, I knew I had to tell them the truth. I first shared with my in-laws the story I heard from August to prevent them from being too shocked. Then I decided to show them the DVD. Lucas, with his eyes wide open, watched and was at a loss for words.
"What is this?"
Diana was also greatly shocked to see Lawrence attending the birth of an unknown woman. I explained to my in-laws the plan I had devised with August and asked for their cooperation.
"All right. Not sure how it'll go, but let's help,"
Lucas agreed. "Yes, we need to confront Lawrence about this," Diana added. Their support was reassuring. All that was left was to wait for Christmas. And now, a month later, on Christmas night, the Keaton family relatives gathered at our house. We set up a long table in the living room and arranged the food. The relatives looked puzzled.
"Why are we gathering here?"
Before we started eating, Lucas stood up to address everyone.
"Thank you for coming to the Keaton family's traditional gathering. It's a bit cramped, but there's something we need everyone to see. So we're here at the young couple's house. We don't have the equipment to play a DVD at our place."
After Lucas spoke, I also stood up. "Before we eat, please watch this video." I turned on the TV and prepared to play the DVD.
"What is it? Some fun video to show us?"
Lawrence asked with a smile, looking at me, unaware of the fate that awaited him. As I pressed the play button, Lawrence's face froze in that instant. The screen showed Rosamond's face as she lay in the labor room.
"Is this? Hey, stop it, Maria!"
The relatives around us started murmuring in confusion.
"What is this?"
"Who is this pregnant woman?" Everyone's gaze turned to Lawrence, realizing the trouble he frantically searched for the remote control. But anticipating this, I had hidden it. When Lawrence realized there was no remote and approached the video player, Lucas stopped him.
"Stop it! Let it play!"
Desperately trying to stop the video, Lawrence struggled, but he was held back by Lucas and me.
"Lawrence, give it up.
Just watch quietly." Told off by his own parents, Lawrence fell silent, tears welling up in his eyes. Meanwhile, the birth video continued to play.
This means Lawrence has a secret child.
Oh, to think someone in our Keaton family has a mistress. If people find out, we won't be able to show our faces around the neighborhood. Amidst the commotion with some relatives crying, I tried to calm everyone down. Please, everyone calm down. The baby born is not Lawrence's child. What? But Lawrence was clearly present at the birth, and the woman in labor kept calling out his name. Everyone looked at me with puzzled expressions, and among them, Lawrence seemed the most shocked.
Maria, how did you know that?
Oh, so you knew after all that the child isn't yours. I confronted him, and Lawrence clammed up, looking uncomfortable. If you knew it wasn't your child, why acknowledge it? And why have you been paying child support every month?
Well, that's because...
Lawrence, sweating, struggled to find the words.
Acknowledgement? Child support? And yet you say the child isn't Lawrence's. Explain yourself.
That's right. We can't accept this as it is. Everyone was demanding answers from Lawrence, but Lawrence couldn't bring himself to tell the truth. Unable to hold back any longer, Diana fell to her knees in front of everyone, crying.
I'm so sorry, everyone. It's my fault for not raising him properly.
As Diana sobbed, I patted her back to comfort her. No, Diana, this isn't your fault. I'm about to call someone who can testify to that.
You're right. Sorry for losing my composure.
With tears still in her eyes, Diana looked up. Sensing something was amiss, Lawrence confronted me.
What's going on here? What are you planning? Be quiet, Lawrence. This whole mess is your fault in the first place.
That's right. Even if the child isn't yours, the fact remains you had an affair. The room fell silent at my in-laws' words. It was about time for me to make the call. I took out my mobile phone and called someone. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. It was August, who had been waiting nearby. Behind him was Rosamond, holding Clyde. As I let them into the living room, the relatives began to murmur.
Isn't that the pregnant woman from before?
Yes, it is, and this man, August, is the real father of the child. I introduced August to everyone. August had brought Rosamond, as planned. Our arrangement was this. August would go to Rosamond, tell her the family had found out about Lawrence's secret child, and lie that Lawrence was no longer able to pay child support and was passing custody to August. Rosamond, likely believing the ruse, must have panicked, so August played along.
It's hard for me to suddenly become a father, too.
He then invited her to the Keaton family home to discuss child support. Normally, a mistress wouldn't visit the family home, but Rosamond seemed desperate for money. She must have thought Lawrence would help her out. Knowing how Rosamond would likely react, August followed our plan. As expected, Rosamond exclaimed upon seeing Lawrence. What do you mean you're not paying child support anymore? And even transferring custody to this poor man? How cruel!
What? I haven't said anything like that. Ha ha ha! You were tricked, Rosamond.
What do you mean? Was it a lie?
Yes, and the story about Lawrence not paying child support and transferring custody to me was a lie. I had to say it to get you here.
That's terrible! You deceived me! But the fact that his wife found out is true. So you needed to be here to atone for your affair and deceitfully taking child support. Rosamond's face turned increasingly pale at my words. It's not a lie. Clyde is definitely Lawrence's child.
That's right. Clyde is my son, and I will make him the heir of this family.
Lawrence defended Rosamond. However, the relatives wouldn't stay silent.
What? You intended to make someone who isn't your biological child the heir?
Lucas yelled, and the others joined in with their complaints. Amid this, Lawrence boldly declared,
Maria can't have children. I'll divorce this useless wife and remarry Rosamond, who bore me a child, to continue the family name, even if it's not my biological child.
The room fell silent. Then Diana clung to Lawrence. How can you abandon Maria, who has served you dutifully as our daughter-in-law? That's too much, Lawrence.
It's necessary. Dad always wanted someone to continue the family name. No, I won't accept this. Don't you realize how much Maria wanted children? I knew she consulted you about it, and you treated her like just a housekeeper.
Lucas, Touched by Lucas defending me, I felt tears welling up.
Why would Dad know all this? Maria, did you tell him? Fool, we live nearby. Your voice carries to everyone. Just so you know, we won't accept someone to continue the family name under these circumstances.
August, overhearing, confronted Lawrence.
You keep talking about continuing the family name, but there's proof that Clyde isn't your child. Proof? I had a detective look into it. Remember when you were at the bar having a good time talking to the woman sitting next to you? You were sweating a lot then, and she wiped your face with her handkerchief. Actually, that woman was a detective. When I visited Rosamond's place, I secretly borrowed Clyde's pacifier and had a paternity test done with it. What? Now you understand. You and Clyde are not related. By the way, I am his biological father. And you knew Clyde was AB blood type when you attended the birth. What's his blood type, Mrs. Keaton?
O type, so they can't be parent and child.
You hid that fact and claimed to be A-type when acknowledging the child. Since Rosamond is B-type, I'm A-type.
With these revelations, Lawrence's voice broke down with emotion.
I had tests done. They showed a very low chance of me fathering a child.
I was shocked at this unexpected truth. Why didn't you tell me sooner? We could have sought treatment.
I was embarrassed, worried about what the neighbors would think, so I acknowledged Clyde.
That's no longer possible. Quietly transfer custody to August, Clyde's real father. No, stop this! Rosamond suddenly cried out, having been silent until then. I wanted to bear Lawrence's child and join the Keaton family, but not with this poor man.
What? Who are you calling poor?
That's right. August isn't poor at all. August and I said this, looking mockingly at Rosamond. What are you talking about? August works for a low salary at a small factory. Are you just pretending? Rosamond's loud voice made Clyde, whom she was holding, start crying. August quickly went over, took Clyde in his arms, and comforted him.
Poor thing. Don't cry because of your mother. There, good boy.
As August comforted Clyde, the boy stopped crying and smiled. Clyde knows who his dad is, even though they haven't lived together. And Rosamond, August isn't just pretending. I took over holding Clyde so August could explain.
I work at a subcontractor for my parents' company.
What do you mean?
Ever heard of Arrington Corporation?
At that, Rosamond's mouth fell open. The biggest local corporation, you mean?
That's right. My dad runs it. I'm learning the ropes at the subcontractor to eventually take over the family business.
Rosamond was shocked at this revelation. Then she suddenly smiled, pleased. Great! So Clyde's dad is going to be the president. Then I'll be the president's wife. Just as Rosamond said something so opportunistic, she forcefully snatched Clyde back from me. Holding him tightly, she declared, Clyde, we'll live together with your dad.
No, I'll take custody of Clyde, but I won't be with you. I'll raise him with my parents at home.
That seemed only natural to me, but Rosamond desperately resisted, turning pale. Why? There's a mother right here. Why this decision?
Of course. You lied and chased after men with money. How can I trust you?
Then I won't lie anymore. Please let me stay with Clyde. He needs me. Rosamond appealed to August with pleading eyes, but his resolve didn't waver. Clyde even looked away from her. Rosamond no longer had the right to be a mother.
Rosamond, you should be the first to apologize. Having an affair with a superior, and now you're here in front of his wife and relatives?
Rosamond was flustered in front of everyone. I seized the moment to say, regardless of who the child is, since you had an affair with Lawrence, you'll have to pay compensation in the divorce settlement. What? No way!
Stubborn woman, you need to take responsibility.
The relatives echoed with disapproval. And of course I'll also seek compensation from Lawrence for the divorce. Understood? I glared at Lawrence, speaking firmly. Then my in-laws also addressed Lawrence.
Not just that. Bringing such disgrace to the Keaton family, we can't apologize enough to the public. So Lawrence, you must leave our home.
That's right. A disgrace to the Keaton family.
Exactly. Leave right now.
Faced with these demands from everyone, Lawrence shrank away. Lawrence, looking desperately at me, said,
Maria, I was wrong. I'll pay the compensation due from the divorce. Please help me.
I was speechless at this pitiful sight, but Lawrence, undeterred, continued.
Ah, if I'm thrown out, you'll struggle too, right? So ask Dad not to kick me out. If you ask, he'll listen.
No, that won't be necessary. I'm also leaving you and this place, I said firmly, feeling relieved. But Lawrence seemed unable to comprehend this situation, his expression dazed.
What are you talking about? How will you live as a housewife alone? You can't manage by yourself. No, that's fine.
August, interrupting, surprised Lawrence further.
Didn't you know, sir? Until just before her marriage, your wife was the executive secretary at our company. My dad still laments losing her. She was the best secretary we ever had. So after the divorce, she'll work for us again.
Indeed, I was the executive secretary at Arrington Corporation before my marriage. Lawrence, who never showed interest in my job, wouldn't have known. August and I hadn't met while I was there, so we didn't recognize each other initially. That's why, when I first met August, his name sounded familiar. That's why, Lawrence. Please, let's get divorced.
Though it's a pity to let go of such a good daughter-in-law like Maria, I'm familiar with the president of Arrington Corporation. We'll still keep in touch.
Yes, I too want to remain close with Maria. Lucas, Diana, thank you. I always want to continue our relationship. Tears in my eyes, I clasped hands with my in-laws. August took Clyde and left for home. Rosamond stayed behind for divorce compensation negotiations. The same for Lawrence. We couldn't just leave him without discussing compensation of asset division, which lasted until morning. We split the assets accumulated since our marriage, and I received additional compensation from Lawrence. Lawrence was then disowned by the Keaton family. Lawrence had never lived outside his family's property before. He even struggled with the arrangements for moving out. Moreover, the president of the company where Lawrence worked had connections with Lucas. As a result, the rumor that Lawrence had an affair with his subordinate Rosamond spread quickly. Naturally, his colleagues' treatment of him worsened. Rosamond resigned early and returned to her parents' house. However, her father, also acquainted with Lucas, was furious about her affair with her superior and recognition of a child by another man, and quickly kicked her out. Rosamond, having spent her divorce compensation, is now working at a bar. I heard this from Lucas, with whom I still keep in touch, and was again surprised by the extent of his network. Lawrence, troubled by his deteriorating relationships, eventually resigned. Where he went to seek work is unknown. Now I've been re-employed at Arrington Corporation, working as an executive secretary. August still works at the subcontractor's factory. He prefers to stay there for now. It allows him to rush to Clyde, who's not yet in kindergarten, if needed. Indeed, he's a great dad. While I once longed for children, my fulfilling job now makes me think marriage isn't necessary. However, about a year later, with Clyde enrolled in a childcare center, August moved to the parent company. Initially, he started as a trainee. One day, incredibly, August proposed to me. It was so unexpected that I was truly surprised. Really? There's over a 12-year age gap between us. Are you sure about this? When I asked this, August answered with a smile.
I decided this ever since you divorced. Clyde is fond of you, and most importantly, Dad says, it has to be Maria. I know I'm just a greenhorn, but will you marry me?
Although I hesitated, I was drawn to August's earnestness. And so we got married. Now it's August, Clyde, and the new life growing inside me. A child with August. Together, we plan to build a happy family.